Hey guys, what's going on? This is JT from JT Coin Rings. Today I'm talking to Steve from Tic Jewelers. Steve and I had a wonderful interview. We discussed how the business of coin rings has evolved, how to do the business at state fairs, which he has 20 years experience. So for those who sell coin rings or who sell at fairs or want to know how to set one up, watch this interview and tell me in the comments what you think about it. All right, I'll see you in the comments.
And which I wanted to talk about. You shared with me that you've done over 600 in your time frame. Now, early on, you said 20 years in the business of making jewelry,
Yes,
starting
sir.
off with making women jewelry. What are some of the tips that you can give? Give me 5 tips in 2021 from your years of experience from years past that you're going to change or going to continue doing with these fairs once things open back up.
Right. The first thing I would say is what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep changing. I'm going to keep learning new techniques. Even after 20 years, there's something new that you can learn just about every day, even
Right.
in just basic setup of a market or an art market. Art markets, I don't do an internet thing primarily. I don't sell online.
Mhm.
As I told you earlier, my tech department went to college and moved away.
Right.
and I can be technically challenged at times. So I'm more of a classic bullshitter. I'm real good at talking to people and interacting and face to face. So
Hmm.
that's just kind of where my comfort zone is. I like
Right.
to talk to people. But I'm trying to grow my own creativity. It's a constant push. Sometimes you have to get out of your comfort zone and learn something new.
Hmm.
So that's my plan for this year, especially. I've got some plans for a couple of cool projects in the works coming up. I have a lathe that I need to learn how to use
Okay.
because there'll be a lot of cool stuff with that. My first project coming up, and I just started working on it. I'm starting to play around with steel stamps
Okay.
and make some rings that are stamped, much in the way that Fold does, David. I spent a lot of last year buying up some really cool stamps from 3 or maybe 4 of the best designers that I could find,
Hmm.
independent steel stamp makers on the planet. And I'm accumulated some really cool stuff with some really great designs. And I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be a really cool line. I think people will respond to it. The early
Yeah.
work that I've done, which is, in fact, I put a couple pictures out on it on Instagram. They look like
Yeah.
crap. It's just the basic getting started. But, it's important at this stage for me to show people everything you do when you first start out is not
That's right.
perfect. That's why when I put these pictures up, I call them warts and all, because I
Hmm.
want you to see that, what, this is a process. Learning and creating and growing and being uncomfortable is part
Right.
of that process. And if you stay focused, you'll get there. But it's a challenge. Be uncomfortable with it and learn about what you're doing. Don't get in over your head too fast. There's a whole process here, and if you learn how to do it, in a more even way,
Hmm.
you'll be better off in the long run.
Now, I did see one of the first rings that you did with a stamp. If I'm not
Hmm.
mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong. It was the whale.
Yes.
I do remember
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah. The
Um,
whale. Yeah. Aqueous. The hat. It says Aqueous. They're one of my favorite bands,
hmm.
and one of their logos is a whale. And I found this guy in Bandera, Texas, who made me a whale stamp.
Okay.
And it turned out great.
Yeah.
It was an unfortunate accident, but the top of the ring was kind of wavy,
Hmm.
and I kept it in there because it looked like the whale was swimming through the waves. It was kind of cool. It was a complete accident.
Right. But you know what? It turned out to be wonderful. And I remember
Yeah, it did.
you posting that, and it's funny because I believe that we talked about Dave from Fold Coins,
Hmm.
that he did one with the honeycomb. And
Yes.
when he showed me, I said, Dave, this kind of shape kind of funny. He says JT was on purpose. It was on purpose. the honeycomb. It's like dripping honey. Do you get it?
Right, right, right,
so,
right, right.
so
Yeah,
when I saw the whale and the wave, I thought it was
hmm
perfect because it was the blowhole, and I was
yeah.
thinking, that was the perfect symmetry point for that ring.
Well,
So
I would love to tell you that I did that on purpose, but that would be a lie.
that makes the story even better, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So the beautiful thing is that you had the opportunity to do over 600 festivals, interacting with
yes,
the people, and
yes.
unlike today's market, everything's done online. So, what's some of the best interactions or tips you can give when you're dealing with a customer face to face?
My motto is when people walk up to your booth, say hello. I say howdy a lot. I say howdy to everybody that
Mm-hmm.
comes up. Sometimes someone will say, well, I'm just, I'm just looking. So, well, it's
Right.
okay. I'm just saying howdy. It's, it's all
Mm-hmm.
right. But interact with people. They don't
Mm-hmm.
like the hard sell,
Right.
I've learned. So just say hello. And if they come to you, they will. If people are looking at your rings, just say out loud, the rings are all made from coins. And if somebody else is with them and they weren't paying attention, then they'll turn their head and pay attention now. And then you've
Mm-hmm.
got them. Then just let them look and they'll pick them up, try them on. Educate your customers if you can. Learn about what you're working with. So I started out stringing beads. I still string beads. It's my
Mm-hmm.
first love. So my theory going into all of this was you wouldn't buy a car from someone who could tell you something about the car, right?
Right. That's right.
So, why should I expect someone to spend $100 on my jewelry if I can't tell them everything about it?
Good point.
So if I'm working with stone beads, I can tell you where those stones were dug up out of the ground. I can tell you what they are, that kind of thing. So when I started playing with the coins, I thought, you know what? Learn everything you can about the coins that you choose to work with so you can tell a story about them. If you're making Morgan dollar rings, learn who George Morgan was
Mm-hmm.
and tell your customers about it. It's not only a great history story, it's a great immigration story.
Mm.
Charles Barber, same way. They came over to this country as immigrants, got an apprenticeship at the Treasury, worked their way up to chief engraver. How great is that?
Right.
So whatever, if you're working with Franklin half dollars, be sure and point out that coin says "In God We Trust" in a larger font than any other money you'll see.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a real eye catcher, and it's a real high point of why people like that ring, because
That's
it
true.
really pops out. So
Mm-hmm.
knowing what you're doing. I often joke, I look like a Sons of Anarchy reject. So, when people come up to my booth, they always ask my wife, because she's often there with me, is that your work? She says, no, this is his work.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I wouldn't pick a guy out of me, out of like me, out of a lineup of two either. I just, so I get your surprise. A guy like
Right.
me, looks like me, is not supposed to be able to do what I do.
Right.
So
And
that
and
always adds up.
and I've seen the pictures. I've seen your hand with the bead, and I'm like,
Oh yeah.
I'll tell you, like I told you before, I'm not great with my hands until I start doing coin rings. I'm still learning the process, but I love beadwork. I have a good friend who does the same thing, and just the bending of the metal into some fine jewelry is a beautiful concept, and I love to see it. So when I saw your Instagram page and seeing the
Mm-hmm.
different things you're doing, plus the 2021 version of the silver and stamping process you're doing, I'm blown away. And
Well, I appreciate that.
I think that the new crowd in 2021 is definitely going to appreciate the work that you're putting out, the new things with the custom rings, and also with the silver stamping that you're doing. You're adding that in your jewels and making pendants and all. Um,
Thanks.
one more good tip that you would give to someone who wants to do festivals or outside events.
If you can, if it's local, especially, go to the event before you try to participate in it. Walk
Mm-hmm.
through the event, the market. It might be a craft show on a church parking lot. It might be a 3-day juried festival.
Mm-hmm.
I've done both. I've sat on juries for festivals, picking who gets in and who doesn't. It's a complicated process, but go through and not only observe the other exhibitors that are there and what they're offering for sale, watch the customers. and see
Mhm.
how they're interacting with people. Every market might not be the best fit for you. If all the jewelry people there have $5 trinkets that are resale, that might not be your crowd, you know?
Right.
So go and check out the shows to make sure they're the right fit for you, and then invest in some good display equipment. Get yourself a proper tent. A
Okay.
lot of the better markets want you to have a tent with a white top on it, not the blue or the pink or those little cheap tents you can buy from Walmart. Spend a little more money on it.
Hmm.
Get yourself some really decent looking display items. And before you start doing the market, pop all that stuff up in your driveway and play around with your display so
Okay.
that you can see what your booth's going to look like to someone who's never seen you before and who's going to walk up. Make sure your work and your display pops and that your work is the focus of that display. Most
Mm.
of these markets, unless you have tens of thousands of followers on Instagram, perhaps, maybe, I don't know, but they don't know you're there. So when they walk, and all of these buys, these are all impulse purchasers that are coming out to these markets. If they see
Right.
something they like, boom, right?
Hmm.
So you've got about 30 or 40 seconds to catch their eye when they're walking by. And that's your opportunity. And if you play with your display and get really good at making your work shine,
Hmm.
that'll catch their eye.
Awesome. That's awesome. Awesome advice. Awesome advice. Now, I talked to you earlier about coin rings.
Hmm.
That's what we have in common with making those. Now, how many coin rings do you make for a setting like that? Because I worry about sizes, not having the right size. But you
Right.
came up with a solution in that. And can you share that?
I take just as many. I don't think you should go out with less than 200 rings.
Mm.
Is it a challenge to put all that together? Of course it is. I've known and spoke to guys who take their tools out and they work on the job and all that kind of stuff. That's not really feasible for me.
Hmm.
I don't want to lug a 100-pound arbor press and all the stuff like that. So I try to carry as many rings as I can in multiple sizes for every market. Now you will have to cut down on maybe the stay with 5 or 6 different coins that you're working with at a time, depending on your workflow and how many you can put together. But I try to go out with as many rings as I can.
Hmm.
People will special order, and there's always a possibility for that. But being jewelry, especially such an impulse buy, you're much more likely to sell your merchandise if they can walk away wearing it or carrying it in a bag.
It makes sense because you don't want to lose any sale. So
Right.
having them 200 rings, what's your time for that? I mean, are they
Depends on
fresh?
the coin.
Okay. So
Depends on the coin.
to get ready for a show, I'm
Hmm.
sure you make this way in advance. You may take some that didn't sell from the last event, but
Hmm.
how long do you usually prepare for a fair?
I do 30 plus markets a year, and it keeps me busy because I carry a lot of bracelets and necklaces and things. And if it's on my table, I made it. I don't buy and
Mm,
resell things. I have an earring display that holds 200 pair of earrings at all times.
wow.
So it keeps me busy. I make something every single day. So depending on how the sales from the previous market weekend was,
Hmm.
I'll focus on catching up there first. If I need to spend 2 days just working on rings, one day working on earrings,
Hmm.
the other 2 days catching up. It's a mix and it changes all the time depending on what's popular that weekend. You never can tell. I've had my crystal ball in the shop for 20 years and I still haven't been able to find a good repair person for it. So,
Oh, wow.
you just never know what's going to sell from weekend to weekend. But your best bet is to have as many options for your customer as you can,
Right.
because if they can walk away with it, they're much more likely to buy it. That's been my experience anyway.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you for that advice. And now,
Sure.
you've been successful because, hey, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I want the people who are coin ring creators not
Mm-hmm.
to be discouraged. Can you give some advice on how to run a viable business?
it's tricky, man. It depends, pay attention to the regulations in the city and town or state that you're doing business in.
Mm-hmm.
Have your resale permit on you at all times. You never know when the tax man's going to show up
Mm-hmm.
and want to see your paperwork and see that you're legitimate.
Right.
Get yourself a really nice, eye-catching business card made. People, if your card is unique and it pops and it gets people's attention, they will keep it. I've had people call me 5-6 years after I saw them, and they kept my card and they thought about something and they gave me a call. So keep yourself visible in that way at all times.
Okay.
Develop your own rapport when you're in your booth. You might be saying the same thing over and over and over again, but to every customer that comes by, it's new. They've not heard it before, so it might get tired to your spouse or your significant other if they're in the booth with you all the time to hear you
Right.
say the same things over and over again. But before long, they'll be saying them too to the customers because, like I say, everyone who walks by, it's new territory.
Right.
And they've never heard it before. So if you're engaging with your customer and they know you're friendly and you can tell them all about the work because it's from your own hand, it helps them gain confidence in you, and it breaks down, whatever defense mechanism they have, because a lot of people are going to walk up and think, I don't want this guy to give me the hard sell.
Right.
One of the things I learned was if you can a lot of people will set up their booth where you have to walk in it
Okay.
to see things. And it became apparent to me early on that a lot of people are skittish to walk into a booth. Like they don't want to walk onto a used car lot because they don't want to get the hard sell from the salesperson. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you can set up your work and display it properly on the perimeter of your tent, right underneath your tent, and the table and the work are between you and the customer, it's been my experience that they feel more comfortable with you. They'll walk up and see your work, rather than just walking by because they don't want you to get the hard pressure sell on them.
Yeah.
And just let them play around.
That makes sense.
It makes them feel more comfortable, and they don't think they're just going to walk in and say, "Hey, buy this, buy that." So just basic behavioral science. Nobody likes that high pressure stuff.
That's true. That is true. No one wants to be pressured into a sale. They want to definitely offer. So understanding that psychology is very important, especially when it comes down to coin rings and other jewelry. People see with their eyes, and then they may want to touch. They may want to feel. I'm sure some things will have definitely changed just going around the pandemic, allowing people to touch and put things on. I'm sure you probably make some adjustments on that, but people first look at something pleasing to the eye. And do you play music at your tent? Do you lure them in with music?
If it's allowed, yeah.
Okay.
A lot of the markets I do, they'll have some live music playing from time to time.
Okay.
And then in between they'll play radio. But yeah, in fact, I just bought some new lighting that has each little light unit has Bluetooth speaker in it, and you can hook them all together.
Okay.
So I've been playing around with playing music in the booth just this year. Just for not only for my benefit, but for the customers if they like it. Just something neutral and that won't run anybody off. It's just a little something else to add to it. Yeah. So I've been playing around with those. They're really cool. They're about $45 at Walmart.
Okay. That's awesome. I like to hear that.
Go ahead.
No, I like to hear that because it really tells you take time and caring about your environment, the display.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you can get lights, if your booth has electricity at any market, buy some lighting and put it up over your work. Even if the sun is shining and everything's perfect, the lighting helps. Even if you don't think it does, it helps. It helps your work pop that much more. Lighting is important, even at an outdoor market.
It's awesome. And I also see on your page, your Instagram page, you take real care on posting the right picture, backdrop. It's just not placed anywhere. You put it on rocks. So explain your process on that, because that's internet. You're going from doing your fairs, but now you put special care on the online presence. So talk about how you set up your page.
I set up the page strictly to promote my work, and I don't, with rare exception, I haven't put anything on the Instagram page that isn't just my work.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started initially with Facebook, that was the same idea. I want to promote my work and what I'm doing. I don't want to get bogged down in all the cesspool that social media has become.
Yes.
I've steered away from Facebook more and more because of that. But I thought, you know what, Instagram is a great way to just show what I'm working on. And I've got a lot of great response to it. I like when I started taking pictures, the light box and all that kind of stuff. Those are great photos, but I wanted something that felt a little more natural to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the idea of figuring out a way to take the photo of the piece with that blurry background without having to go through 100 filters or whatever they're called now.
Right.
So I figured out a way to take the photograph just using an iPhone. Now with the portrait mode and stuff like that, the iPhone does it for you. But I was doing it before that portrait mode was part of the Apple process.
Mm-hmm.
But I just thought it was more appealing to me,
right,
to see the photo in that way. Plus, using the natural light, I think, I know all the photo boxes and all the brightness and all that kind of stuff is great for a lot of different things, but for the rings especially, I like the natural light a lot better.
Right.
So it's just a constant. Through all of this process, I've learned one thing: follow your heart. Your head will lie to you sometimes, but your heart won't. And if it feels right, follow through with it, and then be ready to either accept the criticism or the positive feedback, whichever comes at you, and then you can learn and grow from that. So when I started doing the pictures like that, I was really happy with them. And I had a couple of friends who were professional photographers who I talked to about hiring to photograph my work. They said, you don't need us. Your photos are already internet ready.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, you know what? I like them. And if these people are telling me they're okay, I'm just going to stick with that.
Yeah, they look great.
And that's how that all came about. Thank you, man. I appreciate that.